Right now, a 1,500-mile wall of destruction is tearing across the American heartland. Overnight, 10 states watch their skies turn green, their sirens scream, and their towns disappear. Families who went to bed in their homes woke up with no homes left to return to. The storm system responsible for all of it is not finished. The meteorologists call it a super outbreak. But that phrase does not come close to capturing what is actually happening across the middle of this country right now. A super outbreak requires a specific, almost impossible collision of atmospheric ingredients. Warm, moisture-saturated air, surging north from the Gulf of Mexico, slams directly into a wall of cold, dry Arctic air, pouring south from Canada. Caught between them, a ribbon of jet stream wind, screaming at over 100 miles per hour, acts like a match dragged across a strike plate. The result is not one tornado. It is not 5. It is a factory. A self-sustaining, continuously generating tornado factory, stretching from the Texas Panhandle all the way to western Pennsylvania. 1,500 miles of rotating, violent, unstoppable atmosphere. Meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center had been watching this system develop for 72 hours. They knew what was coming. They issued the warnings. And still, nothing prepared anyone for the scale of what arrived. The first indication that this event would be historic came 3 days before the outbreak, when forecasters at the National Weather Service detected an unusually deep upper-level trough digging into the Rockies. By early morning on March 14th, surface observation stations from Amarillo to Tulsa began reporting dew points climbing past 60 degrees Fahrenheit in March, a reading that belongs in July, not early spring. That moisture was the fuel. By 10:47 in the morning, the Storm Prediction Center issued a rare high-risk designation, covering parts of 6 states simultaneously. The last time a high risk of that geographic size was issued was over a decade ago. At 12:03 in the afternoon, the first confirmed tornado touched down 9 miles southwest of Woodward, Oklahoma. It was on the ground for 41 minutes. It carved a damage path 1.2 miles wide through open farmland before lifting, reorganizing, and dropping again 6 miles to the northeast directly into a residential subdivision. By 2:15 in the afternoon, tornado watch boxes from the Storm Prediction Center covered an area larger than the state of California. The machine had started, and there was no shutting it off. Oklahoma absorbed the first wave. 11 confirmed tornadoes in 4 hours, 4 of them rated EF2, with winds between 111 and 135 miles per hour. The town of Freedom lost its grain elevator, its only grocery store, and 23 homes in under 4 minutes. Kansas took the next blow. An EF2 wedge tornado, nearly 1 mile wide at its base, moved northeast through Harper County for 62 consecutive miles without lifting. 62 miles. That is not a tornado. That is a siege. Missouri recorded 7 tornado touchdowns before midnight, including a violent EF2 that struck the outskirts of Joplin, a city that has already buried its tornado dead once before. Illinois saw 4 confirmed tornadoes move through the southern counties in darkness, the most dangerous condition possible when no one can see the funnel coming until it is already on top of them. Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Iowa, and Pennsylvania all reported confirmed touchdowns before the outbreak reached its peak. In total, 53 tornadoes were confirmed in a single 24-hour period across 10 states. 19 of them were rated EF2 or higher. A damage corridor stretched continuously from the Texas Panhandle to the Appalachian foothills. That was 1,500 miles of torn earth, shattered wood, and stunned survivors standing in the rubble of everything they owned. Linda Carver had 17 seconds of warning. That is what the alert on her phone gave her before an EF2 tornado, with winds of 120 miles per hour, tore away the second floor of her farmhouse in Pratt County, Kansas. She made it to the basement. Her truck did not make it to the driveway. Across 10 states, emergency rooms filled with trauma patients faster than staff could process them. Regional hospitals in Springfield, Missouri, and Evansville, Indiana, activated mass casualty protocols before midnight, a designation reserved for the worst imaginable events. Nursing homes in the path of the Illinois tornadoes required full evacuations in darkness, with residents who could not walk. Communities were overwhelmed. Firefighters in 3 counties ran out of the equipment needed to cut survivors free from collapsed structures and began calling neighboring counties for chainsaws and hydraulic tools. Emergency shelters and community centers and high school gymnasiums filled to capacity within hours. Cots ran out. Blankets ran out. The Red Cross activated its largest single-night shelter operation in 5 years. In the small town of Attica, Kansas, a family of 5 was pulled from a collapsed basement at 3:40 in the morning. They had survived the night beneath the remains of their own home, and the youngest child asked her father if the sky was going to do it again. Meteorologists issued the warnings. The data was there. The forecast was accurate, and people still died with almost no time to act. Here is why. The average lead time for a tornado warning in the United States is 13 minutes. 13 minutes is already terrifying. But during this outbreak, the storm system moved at forward speeds exceeding 55 miles per hour, nearly double the typical tornado translational speed. Warnings that should have provided 13 minutes of reaction time effectively provided 6. The warning polygons issued by local National Weather Service offices were accurate, but they were also enormous, covering hundreds of square miles because the storm motion was too fast and too erratic for precise targeting. Residents inside those polygons who did not have basements had nowhere sufficient to go. In many parts of the Heartland, especially mobile home communities, most residents lack basements. Outdoor warning sirens, a system designed for a different era, were inaudible to people indoors, asleep, or caught in the roar of the storm itself. The National Weather Service performed exactly as designed. The design was never built for a 1,500-mile storm moving at 55 miles per hour through 10 states simultaneously. What happened over those 24 hours was not an accident of weather. It was a signal. Atmospheric scientists studying outbreak climatology have documented a disturbing and accelerating trend. The geographic boundaries of Tornado Alley, once centered reliably over Oklahoma, Kansas, and northern Texas, are shifting eastward. States like Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois now record outbreak activity at frequencies that their building codes, their shelter infrastructure, and their public emergency culture were never designed to absorb. The reason is thermodynamic. Gulf moisture penetration is deepening further north and earlier in the calendar year than historical averages show. Arctic air masses are becoming more erratic in their southward plunges, creating the violent temperature and moisture contrasts that generate rotating supercell thunderstorms. Dr. Victor Aguilar at the National Severe Storms Laboratory has studied outbreak clustering patterns for 19 years. He describes the current decade as a phase shift in tornado corridor geography, one that the built environment of the Eastern Heartland is completely unprepared to survive. The infrastructure gap between traditional Tornado Alley and the expanding outbreak zone is not small. It is catastrophic. fewer community shelters, older housing stock, lower public awareness, and a false belief held by millions of people in these newly threatened states that tornadoes are somebody else's problem. The storm system has moved east, but it has not dissolved. Watches remain active across parts of Kentucky and West Virginia tonight. 53 confirmed tornadoes have carved their paths into the record books, but the count is not final. Damage survey teams will spend weeks walking the destruction corridors, rating what the radar could not fully measure. The families sleeping in shelters tonight are not thinking about atmospheric science, or warning lead times, or building codes. They are thinking about whether they have anywhere left to go home to. The Heartland has been told for generations that tornado season is a manageable risk. A few weeks of vigilance each spring, a basement, a plan, a siren system that has worked well enough for long enough that most people stopped questioning it. 1,500 miles of storm track across 10 states in a single day says something different. It says the scale of this threat has outgrown the systems built to contain it. The sky over the Heartland is quieter tonight than it was 24 hours ago. But quieter is not safe. The same conditions that built this system are still present in the atmosphere above you. The same gaps in warning infrastructure still exist in every town that was not hit last night, but sits directly inside the expanding outbreak corridor. The ground remembers what touched it. The radar is already watching the next disturbance forming over the Rockies. And somewhere in a gymnasium in Kansas, a little girl is asking her father if the sky is going to do it again. He does not have an answer. Neither does anyone else.